No. Everybody, welcome to class. This is Mosaic Yoga. Let's start in a seated position, actually. Thrilled to have those of you who are here in person and those of you who are joining live. Heartfelt namaste to all of you. For those of you who may or may not know, last week in Salt Lake City, we experienced hurricane force winds that kind of pulled down a veritable army of pine trees everywhere. And so we've been all working with, post-storm craziness and saying goodbye to these beautiful beings, these trees, right? And it reminds me of this beautiful poem penned by none other than poet and samurai. I always forget his name, so I'm not even going to say it, but he was a student of Basho. And the poem goes so perfectly and succinctly: barns burned down, now I can see the moon, right? And when in the face of, calamity, tragedy, that we can somehow see the inherent gifts there, So a long time ago, several years ago, not a long time ago, but several years ago, the woman I was dating called me and said, "Hey, do you want to go to my birthday? It's going to be at my friend's house." Sonia, the woman who was hosting the party, lived in the Avenues and had this beautiful backyard with these beautiful trees in the backyard. And I was just getting to know this woman, and I was so thrilled to be invited to this thing. And these beautiful trees had this hammock. And so this woman and I, we were flirting and we were hanging out in the hammock, and we were sort of sowing the seeds of a love that would eventually grow and bloom. And we eventually got married and we had a child. And 5 years later, we actually moved into that very house with those trees, right? Those beautiful 5 trees. And we're just fortunately, the hammock was big enough for 3, right? And so we're building this beautiful stuff, and then we get pulled to different parts of the world. We're living in France, and we get this terrible call from our renter who said, "Your pine trees look sick." So we got the tree whisperer to come over there and take a look at the trees, and they said, "Yeah, they're terminal. They got bark beetle. They've got to come down." And so fortunately, and I've shared this with some of you, but they were able to come down safely, right, and whatever. But we were not around, and so we moved back to Salt Lake City in January, perfectly timed for COVID. And the first thing we did when we came home was to go into our backyard and look at the damage, look at the destruction. And these beautiful trees that we had fallen in love with and in, and these elders of this house were just decimated. They were gone. The whole landscape had changed, and there was carpets of sawdust, and this, you can now see the rampant, Virginia creepers that had been neglected for decades. There was just this jungle, and we just had to catch our breath for a moment because everything was just so gnarly, and it spawned this new project we called Yardmageddon, right? Because it was going to be this thing we had to do, But what we realized, the hidden blessing, one of the hidden blessings in that was that no longer was it Sonia's yard, our friend whom we'd bought the house from, right? It was now going to be our yard. We had a blank slate that we could start all over with, and we had to do what's right for our family. Well, here I am in the middle of the summer, and I'm, macheting my way through this Virginia creeper. It was first of all, I ordered a new, yard waste can from the city, first and foremost. So I was going to need this regularly. I'm sitting there literally working through my yard, and my neighbor, who kind of lives up the hill from me and kitty corner of me, she came around with her COVID mask, and she said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about your trees that had come down." And this Sylvia is her name, and she's been living in that house for 35 years. She moved from England with her husband. They lived in that house for 35 years, and she was so sad about the loss of those trees. But she said, "I've been able to see the moon rise over the Wasatch for the first time in 35 years." Not what we would have planned, right? But the blessings that can come out of that, And so I think a lot of times this is where we're in. We're all dealing with personal calamities, whatever. But if with presence we can start to see the hidden blessings that rise over the mountain. And that poem came to me, that ancient Japanese poem, barns burned down, now I can see the moon, right? So who knows? That's what we're doing, I guess, in our practice, is we go through the machinations of just working our body, finding our breath, whatever sort of machinations it takes to get present with right here, right now, so that we have the fortitude, the perspective, really, to be able to see those hidden gems when they come. And what is true is that we have to be with what is. And a lot of times what is grief, right? A lot of times what it is feeling not so happy about the situation, right? And then once we can acknowledge that, then we can move on. And just like the moon creeping up over the mountains, it will, those blessings, those gifts will come. So let's practice today just acknowledging what is. Let's be with what is. Let's celebrate what we can celebrate in the face of whatever sort of calamity or joy or whatever that is we're experiencing. Let's just be with what is. So to that end, let's set our thumb and first finger together. Let's turn our palms open. And let's begin with a deep breath in through the nostrils and out the nostrils. And what is right now is breath. So we're just going to breathe in. Breathe out and find your ujjayi breath, this whisper breath, as we hold on to the literal, veritable life force that is pulsing through you. As we switch gears to move at the speed of life. And if you want to join me, we'll chant the word Om. We'll get into a little bit of breath practice, and then we'll get into some poses. So you can join me or just listen, but palms together, hands to your heart. Inhale. Om. So thumb and first finger together again. Palms down on your knees so your spine can get nice and straight. Let's do about 100 rounds of Kapalabhati. This is a short spurt exhale out the nostrils. Apologize for those of you who have allergies. Okay, but we're going to go like this. You can also do this out your mouth, by the way, if that would work better for you, right? So we're going to do about 100 of those. Now I'm breathing in between every one of those breaths. I'm just focusing on the exhale part. Consciously, this is going to make our head buzz just a little bit. If you tend to prone toward anxiousness, I would rather stick with just deep ujjayi breath instead. But otherwise, I'll do the counting. We'll do about 100 of these breaths. And then we're going to, on the bottom of that last breath, you're going to hold your exhale all the way out. Hold your breath until it becomes just a little bit uncomfortable. And then you're going to breathe in. You might be surprised at how long you can hold your breath. Okay? Here we go. Breathe all the way out. Hold that exhale. If you're familiar with bandhas, contract your bandhas as you hold that exhale. Again, you might be surprised at how long you can hold that breath, but just before it gets too uncomfortable, start in with your ujjayi breath. Once you've had a few rounds of ujjayi breath, put your hands down on your knees if they're not already, and start to make circles around through your torso. And imagine that every movement, every breath, every physical sensation is just another opportunity to anchor yourself to this moment. As if, the forces that be are constantly whispering into your ear, listen to this, feel that, experience this. All of it is an enticement for our awareness. for the purpose of coming back into our everyday and to see everything that happens to us with richness, with perspective, right? With consciousness. Reach both arms up to the sky, full big breath in. And then as you exhale, bring your left hand to the floor, reach your right arm over to the side and find a stretch through your rib cage. Take a couple of deep breaths. I celebrate improvisation here, so if you want to improvise and maybe point your armpit up toward the ceiling or point your armpit down toward the floor, I like what Meg's doing. Plant your hand behind your head, and when you pull your head into your hand, you get this juicy stretch down your side. And then slow motion, bring it back upright, both arms to the sky. Before your left arm goes down to the floor, lean over toward your right arm comes to the floor, leaning over and stretching your left side of your ribs. Mess around with this thing until it feels awesome. Awesomeness is the metric for our success. Bend your elbow with your hand behind your head, and then as you pull your head into your hand, maybe that gives you the leverage to open up a little bit deeper. If that doesn't feel good, go back to what you had before. And then ease your way back upright, both arms to the sky, a little arch in your back maybe, before you reach it forward and come into a hands and knees pose. So in hands and knees, let's just get our spine moving with a little bit of inhale, lean your chest forward, feel a little stretch in your belly. Exhale, draw your tailbone down, spread through the shoulder blades. Inhale again as your heart leans forward, tailbone lifts. And exhale, round your spine, draw the tailbone under. Move back and forth. Now there is as much opportunity for presence in a cat-cow position as any other pose you might ever get to, right? So every posture is another invitation to practice being here, being with this, right? Such that whatever presents itself in our lives, whether that be a yoga posture, 40-foot tree falling over in your yard, right? Or any other event that happens, we can still see it as a beautiful invitation for presence. When you're ready, I invite you to curl your toes under, lift your hips up in the air, downward facing dog position with the knees a little bit bent. And in this pose, bend your right knee, bend your left knee as you sway side to side. Shake your head yes and no. Let it feel easy and dynamic. Big breath in. Long breath back out. Another big breath in. And a long breath back out. Bending your knees a little bit, look forward to your hands. And then when you exhale, you can step or hop or walk feet to hands. Now, with either feet hip bone distance apart and either fingertips to the floor or hands to your knees, bend your knees so your hips drop about as low as your knees into a flat spine. Perfect. And then straighten up your legs and fold forward, rounding your spine. Inhale, bend your knees again, lean your chest forward, and exhale, straighten it up and fold forward. Keep going back and forth. Now, when we think of yoga practice and every yoga posture, certainly this pose will prepare us for other poses, but really what the posture is preparing us for is presence, is to be here. As we welcome the circumstances, acknowledge for exactly what they're presenting, what they're pointing to, and then just be the witness, of course, then responding in a way that feels right. Okay, so when you're ready to open your arms and stand all the way up, reach toward the sky, spread your fingers, right, like the beautiful pine trees reaching up toward the ceiling, toward the heavens, and with your exhale, put your hands together back to your heart. Put a little bend in the knees, root down, and inhale, reach back up. And with an exhale, lean forward at your waist, round your spine, bring your fingertips to the floor, Uttanasana. Now as you inhale, lean your chest away, draw your shoulder blades together, come up halfway to Ardha Uttanasana, and then fold forward again, a little bend in your knees so you come up with a straight spine, reach toward the sky, inhale, and as you exhale, hands together back to heart. So these are half sun salutations. Here we go again. Reach, inhale, dive forward on your exhale. Beautiful, you two. Come up halfway to a flat spine, inhale, fold forward on your exhale. Lovely. Stand all the way up, reach toward the ceiling. Spread your branches, hands to heart, exhale. One more of these, a little deeper bend in the knees so that when you straighten out, your whole body reaches to the sky. It's beautiful, you two. Fold forward on your exhale. Inhale, receive a breath as you look forward. Exhale, fold forward as you give breath. Root down into the floor to reach up to the sky. Inhale, and exhale, hands back to heart. Okay? So moving a little bit out of order a little bit, we're going to bend our knees and move into Utkatasana. And this is usually the first pose in our second salutation series called Sun Salutation B. However, we're going to get into a little bit of power in our legs to do as we begin this. So as the knees are bent, pretend that there were an invisible lasso around your legs, and you're going to pull as if to squeeze into this invisible lasso, right? The invisible lasso, of course, being an obvious reference to Wonder Woman's lasso of truth, right? My 5-year-old is thrilled about being Wonder Woman for Halloween, and so we are all things Wonder Woman. He had to order each component separately online so that it came individually. As you exhale, fold forward, Uttanasana. And then in this position, walk your hands to the left. Reach with your right arm to find a stretch through the right side of your body. Feel into your side. Your fingertips kind of reach down to the floor, exactly. And feel as if it's your armpit that's doing the reaching as your hip pulls back. Now give yourself 3 more long breaths and kind of pull your chin in toward your collarbones a little bit so your head can be really heavy. Yeah. Switch sides so your hands walk over to the right, reaching with the left side of your body. Yeah, exactly. So that your armpit is kind of reaching toward the floor. Your left hip bone is kind of pulling back to the wall behind you. Really, really good. And then it comes back to neutral, and you're going to step with your right foot back to the back edge of your yoga mat and place your right knee down to the mat with a little lean forward for a stretch in your right groin. You could also put your right foot toenail side down for a little bit deeper stretch, particularly if you push the top of your right foot down into the mat. So we're going to accept things as the way they are. We're going to receive the stretch in the body. We're going to just be the witness of whatever's presenting itself. And in our yoga practice, we get a chance to then respond, right? So if that's too deep, we back off a little bit. If it's not deep enough, we go a little bit deeper, responding moment by moment to the information we've got. Plant your palms to the mat. Everyone step back into a downward facing dog pose. Let your head relax here and give yourself a couple of rounds of deep breath. May a deep breath be our first response to whatever comes our way. Lift up onto your tiptoes, roll into a plank position, and I invite you to lower into your version of chaturanga, lower push-up. Maybe that's knees to the floor, maybe that's hovering, who knows. From there, roll your shoulders back into cobra position, bhujangasana, and as you hold cobra, turn your head slow motion side to side. Loosening up your neck will loosen up the rest of your spine. Neutralize your head and press back to downward facing dog, either through hands and knees pose or through upper push-up. You get to choose. Now, looking forward to your hands, step your right foot up between your hands and put your left knee down to the mat for a little stretch on the left groin. Nice, Meg. All right. And I like what Meg did too. Folding over your mat a little extra time might give you a little cush underneath the patella, especially if that's sensitive. You've had some knee injuries in particular. Now, similar to maybe what we've done in other practices, you're going to lean forward into your right foot and take a big step so your left foot comes forward to meet your right. We're in a standing forward fold again. Nice, Karen. Good. Perfect, Meg. Now, inhale, come up halfway to a flat spine. Look forward. Fold forward on your exhale, and then stand all the way up, reaching toward the ceiling, and exhale with your hands together back to heart. Little bend in the knees, not too big. Straighten up as you inhale, reach to the sky. Full sun salutation A, dive forward slowly as you exhale. Inhale, come up halfway to a flat spine. Step back into a plank position. Give yourself one breath in, and as you exhale, lower slowly to chaturanga. Cobra or an up dog position as you inhale, and exhale, lift back into downward facing dog pose. Bending your knees a little, look up to your hands, then step, hop, or walk feet to hands. Inhaling, lean your chest away. Exhaling, fold forward, and as you breathe in, stand all the way up, reach toward the sky. With your exhale, hands together, back to heart. Here we go again, sun salutation A. Reach your arms to the sky, inhale. Lovely. Fold forward on your exhale. Excellent. Come up halfway as you breathe in, flat spine. Step back into plank pose. Hold that for an inhale, and as you exhale, lower down to chaturanga. Cobra pose, roll your shoulders back, neck can be neutral this time. Very good. And lift back into downward facing dog as you exhale. So this far into practice, just kind of hang out in down dog for a couple of breaths and take kind of a broad survey. What's going on for you so far in your practice? How is your body feeling? How is your breath? Your ability to focus, right? How's your energy? Just kind of taking a little bit of a survey and then taking that next positive step forward, right? Bend your knees a little, look forward to your hands, and exhale, walk or hop feet to hands. Come up halfway as you breathe in. Fold forward on your exhale, and then stand up again when you're ready. Hands to heart, exhale. Now we're going to move back into chair pose, Utkatasana. Again, feet about hip bone distance apart. And now you're going to imagine that you had an invisible football between your knees that you were squeezing to middle so that you really fire the insides of your thighs. I'm sure there's some Wonder Woman reference to this as well, but right offhand I can't think of it. So we're just going to have to think of one in your own head. When you're ready to, straighten up your legs and fold forward back into Uttanasana. Come up halfway to a flat spine. And your choice, either go straight to down dog or move through a vinyasa. That is to say, chaturanga, exhale. Cobra or up dog, inhale. And then wherever you are, we're going to meet back in downward facing dog pose. So on this breath, raise your right leg on the inhale toward the sky. Hold this pose for a couple breaths, keeping your hips square, keeping your shoulders square. Squeeze a little bit as if to pull your arms together, like the inside of your elbows were kind of pulling, magnetized toward your temples. Bend your left knee, the standing leg. Look forward to your hands. The left leg is going to be the spring to step your right foot forward between your hands. Very nice, Karen. Good. Good. Now as you inhale, turn your left heel flat. Raise your arms toward the sky into warrior one position. If that messes with your back knee, then turn your left toes forward as you find kind of a more gentle version, crescent lunge pose. Basically the same posture. Okay. Lift up through the sternum. Let your tailbone go long so there's a little bit of core strengthening that happens here. Very nice. Deep breath in. Exhale, drop your hands back to the floor. Slide back into plank pose, upper push-up position. As you exhale, lower to chaturanga, lower push-up. Good. Drive with your shoulders. First, inhale, open up your chest. Let that peel your heart up off the ground. Lift back into down dog on the exhale. Now, one thing I'll do sometimes is I'll step my right foot slightly toward the left foot, then I'll raise the left foot in the air. Okay? So as you inhale, if that serves you, send your left leg to the sky on that breath. Put a little bend in your right knee. That's the spring leg. That's going to be the leg that springs you forward. And then as you exhale, step lefty forward between hands. Turn your right heel flat. Now you're going to step your right foot slightly to the right and kind of turn so your toes are forward. Then with your foundation set, raise your arms to the sky into warrior one. We want to feel both energized, alive, vivacious, while simultaneously feeling grounded, relaxed, and fluid, right? Good, Meg. Lift your heel just even a little bit higher. Good. Point your toes a little bit forward. That's exactly what I'm looking for right there. Beautiful. Excellent, you two. Hands to the floor on the exhale. Slide back to plank on your inhale. Lower down to chaturanga, exhale, stellar, and then roll open to cobra or up dog, nice downward facing dog on your exhale. 4 or 5 breaths in down dog. And if it ever at any point you feel like you're kind of building up a little bit too much steam in your practice, release some of the tension with a sigh out your mouth. And then get back into your Ujjayi breath. As you inhale, bend your knees and look forward to hands, and then walk or hop feet to hands. Very nice. As you land, then inhale, come up halfway. Fantastic. Fold forward on your exhale. Bend your knees again as you move back into chair pose, Utkatasana. And without pulling the knees together or apart, just kind of let them be sort of neutral. Finally, straighten up your legs, bring your hands together at your heart. Take another deep breath into the nostrils, out through the nostrils. Back to chair pose for one breath. As you exhale, straighten up and fold forward, Uttanasana. Flat spine, inhale. Either move through a vinyasa or go straight into a downward facing dog pose. Vinyasa, of course, being that chaturanga on the exhale, cobra or up dog on your inhale, and then downward facing dog again on the exhale. I like to make those optional because not everybody digs those. Right leg lifts on your inhale. Hold that pose. Bend your right knee and open it upward toward the ceiling. As best as possible, keep your shoulders square. So it's really a turning on the ball and socket of your left hip joint. Now looking up to your hands, step your right foot up between hands and then open into Warrior Two position. So in Warrior Two, arms are wide. You feel your front heel in line with the center of your back foot, your front knee pretty much directly over your ankle with kind of a lift through your trunk, balancing these two energies of sturdiness and strength and softness and ease, those together. Finding that perfect, your peanut butter met my chocolate moment, right, in that conjunction of awesomeness, the nexus of awesomeness, which is going to be my next band name, the Nexus of Awesomeness. I think we've already sold out venues just with the name. Okay? Hands behind you, interlace your fingers, straighten your arms a bit, and then bend your front knee even deeper. Now you can hang here, which is a great heart opener, or turn into a little bit more of a shoulder opener by leaning forward and finding this humble warrior position. Knuckles still reaching toward the sky. Think of activating the muscles between your shoulder blades to raise your arms upward toward the sky. Very good. Ease your way back out of this thing. Come back into Warrior Two position. As you give your front leg a bit of a break, straighten up your front leg. Keep the muscles engaged as you turn your left hip forward, lean forward, and then drop your hand to your shin into triangle pose. Draw your tailbone long as you open up your trunk, toward the sky, and then finally raise your left arm toward the sky into what has to be, I think, one of my favorite poses in the universe, which is triangle pose. Back by popular demand, half moon pose is on deck. So you're going to bend your front knee, lean forward, putting your fingertips on the floor about 12 inches in front of your pinky toe. Then raise your left arm to the sky. Now personally, I'll keep just a micro bend in my standing leg to stay in muscular control. I'll keep my gaze down to the floor until I'm absolutely certain that I'm not going to fall over. And then I look up, and of course that's when I fall over. But that's up to you. You get to choose. If you've got some ninja quality balance, you can look up to the sky. Otherwise, keep your balance sure by looking down to the floor. Lovely. Now place both hands to the ground if they're not already. Step your left foot to the back edge of your yoga mat. You're in a kneeling lunge position again. And again, choose whether you're going to fold your mat over or whether you're going to put toenails side down or whatever. Just let it feel good. Let that be your pointing. Just let it feel good. And then with your hands to the floor, step back either to plank and move through a vinyasa or go straight into downward facing dog pose. When you do get to down dog, give yourself a couple moments and maybe 4 or 5 breaths in down dog, full breaths, doing a little inventory, checking out what's happening. Step your right foot slightly toward the left foot, and then raise your left leg in the air. Bend your left knee and open it up toward the ceiling. Mindful to simply rotate on the ball and socket of the right hip joint. So really everything is turning around your right leg bone staying static. One more big breath in, and then as you exhale, step your left foot forward between hands on your way open into Warrior Two pose on this side. Do a quick anatomy check as you align front heel with the center of your back foot, upright trunk, and then send your gaze forward, practicing relaxed focus. That perfect balance between your effort and ease, sturdy structure, fluid breath, focused mind that is soft and not rigid. Now bring your hands behind you as you interlace your fingers, straighten your arms, and either call it good because that feels amazing, or pitch it forward with your left shoulder dropping roughly to the inside of your knee as your knuckles reach up toward the ceiling, and find a couple rounds of deep breath. Now support yourself in this pose with a little muscular engagement of the inner thighs. Think of the inner thighs pulling in, like the heels trying to draw in toward each other. Move back into Warrior Two pose. Straighten up your front leg. Turn your right hip slightly forward as you lean forward. Inhale. Hand to shin, find that grounded, and then just roll your shoulder back. That's a perfect version with your right hand at your hip. If it feels good, raise righty up toward the ceiling and find that perfect version, that Goldilocks version of this pose. That's not too intense, it's not too light. Receive that information with a fat inhale and fat exhale. Good. You're going about your business, everything's fine, but then the terrain changes after a few breaths. Your body's calling on you to go a little bit deeper into the pose or back off the pose a little bit. Or then change poses altogether, which we're about to do now. So look down to the floor, bend your left knee a little bit. Pitch your weight forward. I'll even start with both hands on the floor. Left fingertips on the floor, though I'm not bearing a lot of weight on my left hand, mostly just balance. Activate your right leg strongly up in the air. Raise your right arm to the sky if that suits you. Yeah, beautiful poses. Good. Good. Spread your toes, spread your fingers. That's your pose unless you want to look up toward the sky. And then finally, right hand comes down to the floor. Turn your hips as you step your right leg to the back edge of your yoga mat and place your right knee down to the mat for your kneeling groin stretch again. Good. Be skillful if that means folding over your knee for a little bit extra cushion underneath the patella. That's great. Deep breath as if to send breath right into your groin muscle where you're stretching. As if to send tension out through the nostrils with your breath. So when you're ready, put your palms back to the mat, step back into a downward facing dog, and I'm going to suggest maybe 3 or 4 breaths in down dog. Optional vinyasa, of course. But after about 3 or 4 breaths in down dog, then you're going to choose a pose that for you is a resting pose. And that could be child's pose. It could be cat-cow position. Some people like down dog. It's a wonderful resting pose. But we're going to stay in this resting pose for about 7 or 8 breaths. Every posture is just a new filter through which we get a chance to practice paying attention in different ways. So how is this pose inviting you to pay attention? What are you aware of in this moment? And then we've had a good run with this. When you feel like you've had your 7, 8 long breaths in your resting pose, and don't let me rush you. Our next pose is going to be a standing position, so take your time to come first to a hands and knees on your way to down dog, maybe spend a couple of breaths there. Check in briefly with down dog, and then looking forward to hands, walk or hop feet to hands. Come up halfway to a flat spine as you breathe in, and again back to your forward fold on the exhale. Little micro bend in the knees so your legs are strong to accompany you all the way back up, and then exhale with your hands together back to heart. So start with your hands down to your side, palms facing forward, and find a spot directly in front of you where your eyes can rest. Feel your roots in the floor as you prepare for tree pose, Vrikshasana. Okay, apropos as per the story I told at the beginning of practice, right? So you're going to balance on your left leg and slide your right heel up into your ankle or your calf muscle. I'm going to suggest avoid pressing into the side of your knee. If you want to go higher, grab hold of your shin, maybe slide it up to the inside of your thigh. And then either your hands can stay together or arms reach up toward the ceiling. I'm consoled knowing that actual trees also sway a little bit. Although sometimes my tree does look like one of those trees caught in the hurricane. And then as you're ready to, bring your hands back to your heart, reach it forward, and relax. Good. Shake it out. Awesome to build bone density in certain parts of our body, right? Awesome to build strength in like our ankle joints and all our tendons and stuff like that. It's a really great way of finding kind of an equilibrium in our nervous system. These balance poses are excellent. So when you're ready, after you've found kind of your balance on your right foot, slide your left foot up either into ankle. Now, I could even keep my big toe to the floor like a kickstand if I've got if this is a perfect enough of an edge for me, I'll stay right there. Or calf, or inner thigh. And isn't it crazy, like I could stand all day, I could stand as straight as a stork, as straight as a flamingo for, all my days on one leg, and then I switch legs and suddenly, like, game over. And then when this side feels balanced with the other side, hands can come back to heart, float your foot, and bring it back down. Nice. Feet about hip bone distance apart. Just raise your arms up in the air, and then relax your arms with a sigh. Okay, so we're going to come to either a toe balance, if this works for you. We're going to work toward an arm balance or the principles of arm balance. Okay, so a toe balance, if this works for you, you can just practice hanging here, right? And if this doesn't work for your knees, what I would suggest is just do a high squat with the elbows on the inside of the knees like this, okay? And I know I said toe balance, but what I really meant is kind of like a wide-legged version of toe balance, okay? Because we're either going to hang here or move forward into Bakasana, crow pose, by bending the elbows, squeezing the knees into the arms, looking forward slightly, and then lifting one or both toes off the floor. Now, the principle, we're working principles in the form of poses, and the principles we're working is core strength, inner thighs strengthening, and then working some sort of fulcrum point where we get to figure out where that balance is. So looking forward rather than down, one or no toes off the floor, both toes if that works for you, right? And then relax into a standing forward fold. Good. Now, there's no necessarily health or conscious benefit to getting into crow pose. You don't get instant enlightenment once you get into crow, right? Having been there, I can tell you that life isn't any better with crow than without crow, all right? But what it does is just give you a chance to practice what you've already got. So if you want to take a look, here's what I'm doing. I'm bringing the elbows on the inside of the knees. I'm giving a squeeze, so I'm using my inner thigh muscles. I'm essentially creating a teeter-totter, the fulcrum point, the middle point being my wrists. As I pitch my weight forward a little bit, I pause, squeeze into my arms, look forward again, bring one foot up, lean forward just a little bit more, and then I just tip my weight forward enough that I'm holding the weight balanced. I'm just transferring the weight through the forearms into the floor, right? And then if that works for you, great. Otherwise, then just keep one toe on the floor. That's it. That's perfect, Karen. Good, back, perfect. Yeah, that's it. It's a perfect crow right there. That was actually quite graceful. Well done. Yeah, it didn't yelp. That's a unique pose called eating crow pose. Is when you eat it while in crow. Some people do that better than others. Some people are practiced at that. Here's my favorite way to eat crow. Here's what I do. If I find myself going down, in my head I'm saying, Mayday, Mayday, oh, okay. I'll just hang here okay. Carry on. Talk amongst yourselves. And then I meant to do that, like the Pee Wee Herman. I meant to do that. And then maybe press it back into. All right, so when yeah, that's it. See, now it's no big deal. That's it. Nice, both of you. Really well done. Awesome. Okay, so when you're ready, come to a seated pose or in. Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe it is enlightenment, right? Whereas every moment has every possibility for enlightenment as any other moment, then maybe that's your moment. I don't know. Okay, so just kind of roll through your wrists. Another one of those great things to do for the modern age of texting and typing and driving and stuff. And then cross one arm over the other, turn so your palms face each other, and then bring your forearms, so you kind of go like this, cross one over, turn to face the palms, down toward the navel, and then up and through, If your wrists are more flexible than mine, you could straighten your arms more. If that would simultaneously break both the radius and ulna, please don't do that, right? Okay, and now you got to remember which one's on top. You're just going to bring the other one on top. Good. Clasp. There you go. Bring it forward. Yep. Very nice. Good. Release that. Shake out your hands a little bit in a seated position. Then lift your feet up as we move into Navasana, boat pose. So classic Navasana is just, knees bent, kind of resting back on the sacrum a little bit. You could take a variation with your toes to the floor or hands behind your thighs. I might suggest drawing your shoulder blades together. If you feel like you got to burn off that latte you had too late in the afternoon, then send your legs straight or reach your arms toward the sky. And if ever you get to the point where that's way more than I bargained for, then just come back to a regular boat pose. Maybe 3 more breaths. After 3, bring your hands behind you. Roll your shoulders back as you open up your chest. Hang here or lift into full Purvottanasana, our eastward facing stretch. Or kind of split the difference by bending your knees and lifting up into a tabletop. Come back down if you're not already. Lift your feet up again for boat pose take 2. Any variation works. Another variation might be kind of opening up on the inhale to half boat and then coming back to boat on the exhale. Maybe one more breath. And then bring it back down. And counter by either simply opening up your chest, finding your way into tabletop, or straightening both legs into full canal pose, eastward facing stretch, Purvottanasana, same thing. But eventually that'll come back down to the floor. And we're going to do some form of hip opener. So the easiest version might be from this pose, crossing your right ankle in a figure 4, placing your left foot to the floor, and doing this sort of seated figure 4 pose, akin to the lying on the back version of figure 4. And if the only pose that will satisfy the need to get into that hip, the cowbell of yoga hip stretches, right? I got a fever and cowbells. I can't remember. But it's a beautiful line. I wish I could nail it. Cowbell's the only remedy, or something like that. I got a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell.
There you go.
A moment of silence for Christopher Walken. Now, if you're in regular pigeon pose, then you can walk your hands back toward the shin and maybe just do kind of a quick and dirty switch to the other side. If you're on your back, maybe switch your figure 4 to the other side. Either way, whichever pose you're in, make sure you're just kind of anchored to the moment, using your breath, finding yourself right here and now. There's nowhere to get to other than here. Here is always changing underneath your feet, so stay alert, make your adjustments, keep moving. The movement is the constant, right? And you've had a couple of breaths here, then you're going to walk your hands back toward your shin. When you find yourself, first, if you're on your back, stay on your back, otherwise just swing your right leg around, and we'll come to a lying on our back pose, preparation for bridge. So we're first going to do a couple dynamic bridges. Fingertips kind of reaching toward your heels. Walk your shoulder blades together a little bit so you're strong in your upper back. And before you come up, you're going to roll your lower back into the floor, making your lower vertebra long, and then scoop up vertebra by vertebra as you come up into a bridge pose. Now, oftentimes your chin's going to kind of descend into your collarbones. Do a slight lift of your chin toward the ceiling. If it serves your shoulders to do so, now interlace your fingers and straighten your arms even more as you stretch your chest even more open. Drive the balls of your feet into the floor and find that deeper arch in your back. Release your hands and lower back down. As you neutralize, pull your thigh bones into your rib cage, grab the outside edge of your feet and do a gentle pull of your knees down to armpits. Bring it back to middle. Here goes bridge pose, take 2. So simply align your feet so they're about as wide as your sitting bones, the bony part of your butt. Toes point straight forward. Then arrange your upper back so your shoulder blades pull together. Pull lower back into the floor, just setting the conditions right. Then let's scoop your hips up off the ground and interlace your fingers. If it would serve you in practice today to lift into a full back bend, Urdhva Dhanurasana, you'd be welcome to do so. If that's the case, you maybe bring your hands up by your shoulders, fingers kind of pointing out, and then open up. I like to start on my head, straighten my legs just a little so my upper back gets open, and then push straight down. I kind of feel like if I've done my homework in bridge pose, then when I lift up into full wheel pose, I just get this nice stretch through the belly, and my lower back doesn't feel compromised at all. Whenever you feel complete with either wheel pose or bridge pose, come back down slowly Neutralize for a couple of breaths, simply lying flat, and then reach up and grab the outside edge of your feet again, back for happy baby pose. Bring your knees together, send your legs straight up in the air, and hang here for just kind of a version of shoulder stand, right? Or legs up the wall pose, rather, Viparita Karani. This is a great upside down pose in and of itself. Or plant your elbows to the mat with your palms open, elbows kind of close to your hips, and then press into half shoulder stand where you roll your hips up and rest them in your hands. Now in half shoulder stand, I'm looking straight up at my knees. My body's kind of piked in the sideways V. And then reach the soles of your feet straight up toward the sky if you want to go to full shoulder stand. Careful of your neck. When you're ready to, if you're not already, come back to half shoulder stand, roll back slowly down onto your back. Neutralize for a few breaths. And then we'll find ourselves again back into our happy baby pose. So good, everybody. Now, open your arms, wide leg wings. Bring your knees together. Those are my favorite things to do for the lower back. With your knees together, just start to slow motion make circles in the air with your knees and massage your lower back into the floor. If you've got a very sensitive back, you could choose to hold on to your knees and make this a little bit more supported. After several times around in one direction, switch and go the opposite direction. Now place both feet to the floor, lift your hips up a little bit, scoot your hips over to the right before dropping both knees off to your left. Reach off to your right side as you prepare now for a twist. Focus on long exhales here. Just push your breath all the way out, relax, and then let your breath move back in naturally and easily. Your job is really the exhale. Now bring it back to middle, place your feet back to the floor and scoop your hips over to the left side a little bit before you drop your knees to the right side. Hips go left, knees go right, and then look past your left arm. Give yourself long exhales. Good. Now bring it back to middle. When this side feels balanced with the other side. And lying on your back, we're going to do kind of a variation of our Ardha Yogi Nidrasana, or half sleeping yogi pose. Essentially what you're going to do, reach up and grab your, it's kind of like half happy baby is really what it is. You're going to reach up and grab your right foot with both hands, pull your knee toward the armpit. As you push up through the palms of your hands, you're going to start to feel a stretch in your hamstrings. Now, you probably don't have to go very far to feel a pretty good stretch here. I'm not going for straight unless you're like Cirque du Soleil quality flexible, you know. I'm more interested in doing that pull. As you pull your foot down, you integrate your thigh bone into the hip socket. And when that's set, then you start to pull your shin slightly in the direction of your forehead. You get a ready stretch here, and your job is just kind of hang out and breathe. Now to the extreme, you'd keep this knee bent, and you could bring your shoulder around to the inside of your knee, kind of triceps meet thigh, and eventually your head would kind of wrap behind your calf muscle, right? If that seems like the most overrated thing the human body could do, then maybe it is. And you just sort of like rest knowing that somebody out there can do that, but not my truth, you know? Not my pose, not my truth. Again, then release your right foot to the floor. Same thing on the left side. Very good. Finally, release that. Place the soles of your feet together. Let your knees go wide into Supta Baddha Konasana, supine cobbler's pose. Your hands can rest down on your lower abdomen, rest on the insides of your thighs. This is more for your grounding, stabilizing, sort of energetic response to this pose. But if you want to build energy, then open your arms wide. And either way, I'm going to invite you to relax as much as possible in this pose. And sort of let time and gravity and your breath sort of be the power for this posture. Maybe 6 or 7 long breaths in this pose, emphasizing the exhale part of the posture. When it feels like the pose is complete, we're going to move toward our last pose, Shavasana, in which case I invite you to bring your knees slowly together and then extend your legs straight into a position where you can be fully relaxed. So there's 2 options here for Shavasana. Shavasana, meaning corpse pose, is an invitation to let everything go and to relax, even and especially your mind, where everything just relaxes, right? And if you want to take this invitation, I might suggest we do something that I call the there is practice, which is a basic form of mindfulness meditation where first off you're going to assume that nothing exists as good or bad, and you're going to bring anything that comes across your field of attention and welcome it with a phrase, there is, and call it by its name. So there is the sound of Scott's voice, there is the feeling of yoga glow through the body, there are thoughts of dinner, there is such and such emotion, there is such and such sound, whatever. So while nothing is good or bad, the other caveat for this practice is I would encourage you not to use personal pronouns like I, me, or my. So it's not that I'm hearing something, it's there are sounds of something, right? It's not that I have such and such emotion, there is such and such emotion, right? So the idea is you are opening up and both being and observing all the objects. If that feels like it's way too much work and you don't want somebody co-opting your Shavasana, just stick with regular relaxation. Otherwise, I invite you to come into this quality, this there is practice, and just be with whatever is. And whatever's going on in this moment, your job isn't to fix anything. You don't have to do anything, hold on to anything. Everything can just be. And if you are doing the there is practice and your mind wanders off, just come back with there is wandering mind. In fact, you can even allow your mind to wander wherever it will. Just be the observer, pointing out there is every step of the way. Let your mind do whatever it's going to do. You don't even have to try to control it. So take a couple of deep breaths in and out through the nostrils. Move your fingers and toes a little bit. And then just do a little roll over to one side when you're ready to, and make your way upright to a seated position. When you do come upright, place your palms together if your hands at your heart, or you can rest on your knees. And I want to finish this practice by chanting the word Om once. You're welcome to listen or join in. Let's inhale. Thanks, everybody. Namaste.